They're so far left, they have been taken so far left, where Pocahontas is now considered a conservative in the Democrat Party. She's like a conservative person. Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, she's considered like a conservative person. These people, they've gone crazy.
President Trump last night attacking Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Warren is one of, if not the presumed front runner among a handful of Democratic senators speculated to challenge President Trump in 2020. And between the Kavanaugh hearings this week and midterm elections in just about 6 weeks, they will have plenty to strategize over before final decisions are made. I talked about all of this earlier this week with Senator Warren, who said at a town hall Saturday that she's getting ready to take a, quote, hard look at running for president. Good morning, Senator. Thank you for joining us. I really want to get your feelings about the occurrences, obviously, this week with the Kavanaugh confirmation. But I'm also very, very interested in delving into your legislation to really deal with the housing problem in this country. Clearly, that's a concern to many that have been left out and really priced out of the housing market. So I really want to get to that because I think a lot of people missed that with all the drama this week. And certainly I'm not making light of the drama. We are talking about a permanent seat on the Supreme Court. Let me ask you, as we wait to see where the final votes will go, what were your impressions of the testimonies this week, both of the nominee and of Dr. Ford?
I believe Dr. Ford. I thought she was credible. And look, what impresses me is Dr. Ford kept saying, just do an investigation. Get the FBI to go check with the other witnesses. Get them to go out and interview people. Get people under oath on this. And I thought that Mr. Kavanaugh, he looked like somebody who thought he was entitled to a Supreme Court seat and that he was outraged that we would even investigate a claim like Dr. Ford's. And he just thought he could deny it and then go on a political attack and be done. Deny Dr. Ford, deny the two other women who've brought accusations against him, and roll straight on forward to a lifetime appointment on the United States Supreme Court.
Is the issue for you, Senator Warren, his character in terms of deniability of things, or saying things that did happen or possibly happened, didn't happen, or is it the act themselves? Because the pushback, as you heard, from Republicans are, well, we saw you guys deal with Bill Clinton and others, so these acts are definitely not where we've brought Bill Clinton. And I think that some of the pushback on the Democratic side has been, we're talking about character, we're talking about denying, and we're talking about investigations to get to the facts. And he has really not supported that when Senator Durbin asked him outright, would you call for an FBI investigation?
Right. You know, and I think that really is the key to it, Reverend. You know, he doesn't want an investigation. And keep in mind, he also, Mr. Kavanaugh, served in government before. And the Republicans have hidden tens of thousands of pages that are part of his service in the government. That's never happened before. You know, when Elena Kagan was confirmed, they basically took everything and said, here it is. And it's not because it's some kind of security secret. It's that politically, they don't want those papers out there. And so now he says, look, what Dr. Ford says didn't happen, but I don't want an investigation of it. I don't want anybody to go forward on this. So what really worries me here, Reverend Al, is what are they hiding? This is a man who does not want to be fully investigated. He simply wants to make his claims and then wants no one to challenge him. And that's just not how it should work. This is a lifetime appointment to a job that will touch every human being in this country. And we have to count on him to make decisions of judgment. That's what the Supreme Court is about. And he's a guy who says, look, I don't expect anybody ever to be able to question me. I just can't go along with that. I can't.
Now let me ask you, one of the things that I and many of those in the civil rights community was concerned about is that as we saw the recovery when President Obama and his administration brought us back from the economic collapse, homeowners, particularly in black areas and low-income areas, were wiped out and there was no repair.
Yeah.
You've come with legislation to really deal with that and to deal with the fact that people are being priced out, people are being pushed out. There's really housing segregation, there's classism. Explain this legislation and why it's so important, because, I really think that this is one of the critical issues of our time.
Well, I agree with you about it being a critical issue. We have a housing crisis in this country. People can't afford rent. They can't afford to buy. And a big part of this is that we have a government that has not been on the side of people who are trying to get into the housing market, who are trying to afford their homes. So what I've done in this bill is I'm working on expanding the number of homes available. It's about 3 million housing units that would be created, but also focusing in particular on the fact that the federal government actually advanced housing discrimination starting back in the 1930s with redlining. And when redlining was ultimately prohibited and African-American families started building a little housing wealth, the next thing that happened was that many financial institutions figured out they could target communities of color, sell the very worst mortgages there, and cost people the housing wealth they were starting to build up. Then when the crash came, many of those very same lenders used the harshest foreclosure tactics against people in communities of color and in our poorest communities. And the consequence has been that we have a wealth gap in this country, a black-white wealth gap, but also just an increasing wealth gap in this country between those who've made it and everybody else. So what this bill is about is it's about expanding the number of housing units, about putting incentives on the table so that we can change zoning laws to bring down the cost of housing, to update that, but also to target particularly the formerly redlined areas and areas of official segregation, and to provide help to first-time home buyers or people who haven't owned a home for at least 3 years, to help them get into homes of their own and begin to build some wealth. To me, this is about doing what's right for the American people.
No, I think, and that's the way you build wealth in this country, is home ownership, and there has really been a definite and clear racial divide there. What are the chances of this legislation passing?
Well, look, I know a lot of people say, no, you can't do that. But let me be clear. We've got to pay for on this. It will not change. It will not cost a middle-class family a single penny. What we propose is we put back in the estate tax where it was during the Bush administration. The same families would actually have to pay an estate tax, and that would affect about the 10,000 richest families in this country. Right. That means we could pay for about 3 million housing units. Think about that, and give down payment assistance to first-time buyers. And here's what I like about this bill. It targets specifically the discrimination that the federal government itself advanced and says, we got to do what's right here. We've got to correct that. But at the same time, it says we need more housing for everybody. We need more housing for poor families. We need more housing for the working poor. We need more housing for working families, for middle-class families. The idea is we all do better when we all do better. we make those investments in housing, we bring down the cost of rent, the estimate is under this, by about 10%. That lets families that are struggling to pay rent have a chance, catch up a little, maybe put a little money aside toward a down payment. But the idea is to build something that works for lots of people, millions of people across this country. I think that's how we make real change. We work together, we stand together, and we do what's right together.
Senator Elizabeth Warren, let me ask you before I let you go. We talk about this often. Are you ready to tell me, are you going to run in 2020, just between the two of us?
Oh, no, come on. We've got 38 days until the midterms. How about for right now, Reverend Al, if you and I stay focused on the midterms, we got to turn everybody out. You know, the votes that are going on right now over Supreme Court nominees, over whether or not I could ever even get a vote on this housing, is going to depend on who controls the United States Senate and the United States House. We got to get Democrats back in charge in the House and the Senate.
Well, I'm going to stay focused on that, but on the 39th day, I'm going to call you again and ask you about 2020. Well, we'll make that deal. I'll stay focused 38 days, 39th day, expect my call.
38 days, 38 days.
All right. Senator Elizabeth Warren, thank you, and very, very important issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Al.